Hi, today I am back to talk to you about these two absolute legends, my Nana and my Granny. So I wanted to talk to you about them because they have been a huge inspiration to me. I don't have them any longer, unfortunately. I lost them both 5 years ago, but they were both a huge part of my life. And I've recently been reflecting on just how much I learned from them. And I think the biggest thing that I want to share with you in this message, which is always one of hope and joy, is don't stress about being perfect and perfectly healthy and doing everything right. Because even if you don't, you can have an amazing life on this planet. So coming from a health coach who's pretty disciplined and quite obsessive about making sure that I get stuff right for my family, it's taken some learning for me to realize that actually I don't need to sweat the small stuff so much. And it was reflecting on their lives that really gave me this insight, and I wanted to share it with you. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about Nana and Granny. So starting with Granny, whose name was Kristen, but everybody called her Betty. Her second name was Elizabeth, I believe, and that's where it came from, but she was Granny Betty to us. So she was my dad's mum, and she was Irish, Catholic, brought up in quite a strict household. As far as I understand, a fairly wealthy household. So her dad was a policeman, and that meant that in their village, they always had meat on the table, and my granny used to tell me that they would share the meat often with other friends from the village. So I think she was well off in that sense, but made to eat lots of things that she didn't like, which definitely affected her choice of food later on in life. And she had a very idyllic outside in the countryside, running around with her three brothers and sisters kind of lifestyle, and became somewhat naughty. I understand she was a bit cheeky and a bit naughty, didn't like following the rules, and was always looking for ways to have fun. So something that I really remember about Granny Betty is that she was always laughing, always smiling, always finding joy. I don't really remember her ever being angry or grumpy or telling anybody off, not even just me and my siblings, and my cousins, but also my granddad. I just don't really remember her being grumpy. And I know that my dad would probably tell that story differently because, of course, your grandparents are always different when they were parents to how they are as grandparents. But to me, she was always happy. I think that's a huge thing I was reflecting on how the oxytocin she must have got from laughing all the time and just finding joy in being cheeky and naughty probably got her through a lot of the things that she maybe wouldn't have, because she definitely didn't do herself any favors with, for example, food. When she was super fussy, she didn't eat many vegetables or fruit. She loved her meat, and so she was a bit of a carnivore, ahead of her time. She did eat some fruit and veg and a few other things, but what I remember vividly is she ate a lot of butter on homemade soda bread. So she made everything from scratch, and I really remember baking and cooking with her when we were younger. Her pie was famous because she only made the pastry for the top. So she used to say that you didn't need the bottom part of the pastry, and it was just all of that delicious like gravy pie filling, and then a pastry, crispy brown pastry on the top. It was delicious. And we would make butterfly cakes with loads of buttercream and lick the spoon and stick the wings in. And now they say you shouldn't do that because you shouldn't have the raw eggs, but it didn't do us any harm. And loads of other things over the years. But she used to have a lot of butter on her soda bread. So she would make Irish soda bread all the time, which was delicious as well. And so much salt. Like nowadays, people would definitely look down on it and say that it was wrong, but she used to have a pile of salt. Like the salt shaker, there was no point having a lid on it. She just took the lid off and poured it. It was like a little mountain on her plate. And she just dipped everything in that. And probably in the butter as well. She had loads of butter on her bread. So like delicious, good for her. So it's interesting that she got so far in life without being sick. It took her a long time to start to get unwell despite that. She also loved Bacardi and Coke. She drank a tall glass filled with ice, generous Bacardi, and loads of Coca-Cola. So again, something that nowadays I and other people in the wellness industry would not recommend. And yet she somehow got by on that, no problem. So Granny lived until she was 89, and I would say she lived really well until she was 80. Pretty well until she was 85, and those last few years were not good. So definitely nutrition would have been a part of what contributed. She died from Alzheimer's, and her nutrition would have contributed to that. I understand that Alzheimer's starts around 20 years before you start to see symptoms. So the brain starts to have these problems, these malformations and these plaques 20 years before you start to see the forgetfulness and the first signs. So I'm sure that her nutrition contributed to that. I suspect strongly that suppressed trauma contributed to that as well. I don't know about any specific traumatic experiences that she may have had that she wouldn't have deemed appropriate to share with me, but I do know that she was beaten at school, which would have been traumatic, with rulers on her hands and other horrible things for not knowing how to write and read because she was dyslexic and they didn't understand it at that time. So, I mean, that in itself is pretty horrible. And I'm sure she had other things happen. I know that she was really, really sick at one point in her life. I think it was with anemia. People in my family would be able to confirm this, but I believe she had severe blood loss. She definitely had some problems, some kind of big health issues that came in, acute ones, so not kind of chronic ongoing ones that perhaps weren't dealt with as well as they could have been, or as well as they maybe would have been now. So I think suppressed trauma from those instances and maybe a lack of recovery from that probably contributed in the long term. But all of this to say, what I was thinking about on reflecting on Granny and Nana is lifespan versus health span. So I see them differently because lifespan is how long you live and health span is how well you live. So I would say that although Granny's lifespan was 89, her health span was 80. She got 80 good years, despite doing an awful lot of things that we would say are probably not the best way to live. The reason that I'm saying that is because it's so easy to get really obsessed with discipline and really carried away with I should. And I don't want you to get bogged down in that. I think if you're generally doing okay, you're generally doing eating the right foods, eat some fruit, eat some vegetables, eat some meat, don't drink too much alcohol, don't drink too much coffee, don't do drugs. It's pretty straightforward, okay? The lifestyle stuff, spend more time outside, walk every day. It's not rocket science. And my granny, staying with her, spent every day time in nature. She was obsessed with the garden. So she was earthing without knowing it. She never had her feet on the ground because I don't remember ever seeing her without her sandals on, but she was always touching the plants. I don't think I ever saw her wear gardening gloves. So she definitely was earthing without realizing it. She knew all the flowers. She knew the names of all the flowers, all of the people. She moved into this kind of retirement community, you might call it. When my granddad died, she moved out of their house and moved into this place where she could still be completely independent, but it was really safe because it was a concierged building and there were lots of other people on their own, some couples in there as well. So not only there was she popular for her garden, she was popular for her cooking. She used to cook for lots of people in that community. She could still carry on with her party lifestyle and just really enjoy life. And she found community. She found engagement, which I talk about all the time, right? It's the simple stuff that matters. We're supposed to live in tribes. We're supposed to live in community. And that's what Granny was doing. Without realizing it, she went and sought out a community when she lost my granddad, who she loved dearly and enormously suffered when he died. So Granny gave me loads of those things. She gave me cook from scratch. She gave me laugh as much as you can. She loved to present herself well. So she really cared about having, cool outfits, matching jewelry and shoes. And she loved a bit of shopping. And I really enjoyed that as a little girl, especially dressing up. Oh my goodness, her box of jewelry was just the best toy box ever. And it was lovely to see that she took pride in herself and it gave her joy. It's the joy that I'm interested in. It's the joy that I reflect on, to appear and present herself in this way that she liked. And she didn't care what anybody else thought. She wasn't trying to meet standards. She was just wearing what she wanted to wear, always very colourful. And I love that about her. So Granny gave me loads of those wonderful things, and I am grateful to her for that. And then you have Nana, whose name was Meryl, but Nana to me. And she was a completely different personality. Might I say Granny also read lots of books before I finished with Granny, because Nana also read a lot. So both of them did lots of reading. And I've since learned that reading increases our longevity, increases our vocabulary, our empathy to other people, and a ton of other stuff. So reading is just like a really basic, free health hack that we can all do, that they both did, that helped to maybe extend and make their lives happier. Nana was really different to Granny. She was brought up in East London. She had a big family as well. often cooked from scratch and was cooked from scratch by her parents. She was very frugal. She was sent away from London in the war, so she was an evacuee, sent away from her family, and she saw the effect of the war, she saw the effect of rationing, and I don't think she ever let that go. So she was very careful with money. She was the one who always reminded me to be careful with money, but she was very generous as well. She just made sure that she wrote everything down in her books every week, how she spent it, and I think that has stuck with me as well, to be careful in that way. What Nana had that I love, that I think is so, so important, and we let go sometimes, is that she was so kind. She was just the kindest person to everybody. She would chat to everybody. You could not stop Nana talking. She would just go and go and go until you literally made her stop. I think that's also partly because she lost my granddad when she was in her 50s. She was really young. And so, of course, then life becomes a bit lonelier and a bit quieter, doesn't it? So she spent her time in her flat on her own. But that doesn't mean her life was quiet. She used to go to Keep Fit and aerobics, aqua aerobics. She joined the church, so she found the community like Granny Betty found it in her retirement community. Nana found it in her church. So she moved into a flat that was really close to the church, and she'd walk over there every day. She was always helping, washing the things that needed to be washed, helping the priest with so many jobs, helping all members of the community. She was a really vibrant member of that community, and I think that helped give her lots of joy and lots of comfort. But she was kind to everybody. She was always asking us, me and my siblings, about our lives. She knew all of my friends' names, my boyfriend's names. She knew all that was happening in our lives. When I moved to Italy when I was 18, she came out on her own to visit me. She got the train and went on day trips. I respect the way that she always sought out adventure. So after she lost my granddad, who I never met, she decided that life had to go on, and she just joined all of these groups and did so many things. I remember her talking about the fireflies, the dragonflies. I don't know if it was dragonflies or fireflies, the ones that light up, when she went to a place in the south of Italy that she'd never seen anything like it, and she thought they were just so beautiful. And all of these trips she went on, coaches and planes and all sorts. And I think maybe that spirit of adventure passed down to me, because I certainly have that heart where I want to go and discover and see new places. Nana was not one to be told no. So she'd always wanted to go on a Harley Davidson. I don't know where that came from. I don't think I ever asked her where it came from, but she'd always wanted to go on the back of a Harley Davidson. So for no less than her 80th birthday, my mum organised for this guy. Nobody would insure her because, of course, she was an old, frail 80-year-old. I mean, she was still very active, but she was still 80. So mum, through a friend of a friend, managed to get this guy who had a Harley Davidson to bring it round. And obviously they have these really wide seats, don't they? Very comfortable, and a high-backed seat at the back, so Nana could lean. And she donned her helmet. I'm going to put a picture here. And she rode that Harley. He rode her around the block. She wanted to ride it around her little block as well, so that all of her neighbours could see how cool she was. And she just loved it. She did love the attention, Nana. She was a performer. She was always a performer since she was young, dancing, acting, singing on stage. And so she definitely had that in her bones. But I love that she just wanted to do that, and she just did it. She didn't care that society said you're 80, you shouldn't. She just did it anyway. And she died at 91, so her lifespan was 91. And I would say her health span was 90. She lived so well right up until she died. So she had a fall when she was, I think, 85. That really knocked her for sick. She was on the floor for a long time, and recovery from that was difficult because it did obviously take her older body a long time to recover, but she did recover. And then it was in that last year of her life that she started to get really sick. She had to go into a hospice. But even right up until the end, it was literally the last few months where she became very, very frail. She was so joyful and so chatty still, and still so kind and interested, just her usual self right up until the end. And that gives me so much joy to be able to remember her like that. So she died from cancer in the end. That got what got her, but it was an accumulation of inflammation and disease in her body. And she really enjoyed her 90th birthday. All of my cousins and all of her great-grandchildren, everybody was there. Her remaining siblings and friends. I remember Nana had a Christmas list of over 200 cards, maybe more than 300, like a crazy amount of Christmas cards. And she would sit for weeks and write out these Christmas cards with letters in some of them as well, long letters, by hand. Another thing that I take from her. And I really think that that kept her going. So her kind of mental maths on the rationing, the writing and the reading, the community, the joy from that. We always had long cuddles. She was very affectionate. Same with Granny Betty with us. And that I know now keeps you going as well. So Nana wasn't particularly unhealthy. She ate, I would say, fairly British food, so typical meat and two veg style food, but nothing particularly unhealthy. But certainly I remember that she was a fan of a penguin biscuit, big fan of a penguin biscuit. I think she might have allowed herself more than one a day of those. And she liked, you know, the packaged cakes, and she had a sweet tooth for sure, chocolates and things. I think she ate, you know, a lot of those sort of things towards the end especially. And she'd allow herself a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, or certainly when she was in company, and she'd have lots of tea. So she definitely had some things that maybe would be considered not particularly immune boosting or promoting health, but she wasn't terribly unhealthy. I think she offset all of the negative effects of what she maybe had taken in via food with her really positive attitude, with the way that she reacted and dealt with the adversity that she lived through from the war, with the adversity that she lived through from losing my granddad, and many, many other things that of course happened to her in her life. So it's really just to say that I think mindset makes an enormous difference. Kindness, engagement with a community make an enormous difference. And living your life the way you want to live it. So not waiting until retirement or until you lose your partner to be the best version of yourself, but find a way today to be the best version of you, to be the version that you want to be, to wear what you want to wear like Granny Betty did, or to do what you want to do like Nana did. They were two amazing women, and I feel really lucky to have known them and had them in my life. And I know that they've impacted me and helped to make me the person that I am. So I hope that their stories will impact you in some way too, in some small way. And I hope that you enjoyed hearing about them. And I would love to hear about maybe your grandparents and what they left with you and how that's affected the decisions you make today and the way you live your life today. So leave it in the comments if you have anything to share with me. Otherwise, watch this other video if you fancy something else, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.